Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another session of the College to CEO Speaker Series. This is the first one in spring semester, first one in 2022. Happy New Year to all of you, in case I haven't spoken to you yet. To give you all of our new participants a quick intro, quick brief on what the series is all about. It's called the College to CEO Executive Speaker Series. It is a platform where we have a real opportunity to connect and talk directly with C-suite executives and top industry leaders who have amazing careers and a lot of experiences. And it's our opportunity to talk to them one-on-one and hear about some of their experiences, how they went about it, and what were the mistakes they made, what did they do right, what are some of their core values they held on to as they climbed up the corporate ladder. For us, to learn from it, understand it, and try not to make the same mistakes again or learn from it. And really, whatever they did, it worked. They are now at the top of the corporate ladder, and this is all about learning from them and networking. It's about getting that access to personal advice and mentorship that it's not easily available and very, very beneficial. And for all of the others who are coming back for another episode of the College to CEO Speaker Series, welcome back. It's because of your support that we are able to keep this going. If this the inspiration behind the College to CEO Speaker Series honestly is I started reaching out to some of the leaders and learning from them, learning from their experiences, and it has had a huge impact on my career in terms of being a student or getting internships, or just me being an individual and growing as an individual. And I thought to myself, if it has helped me so much, then it can potentially help a lot of people. And that's the only inspiration behind us bringing this and creating this College to CEO Speaker Series. And if even one of you go away from today's session with feeling like you learned something today or it impacted you for the better, that would make us the happiest. That being said, this would not have been possible without the support of Garth and the Career Center and the College of Engineering. Huge shout out to them for bringing this, giving me the opportunity to help bring this program to all of you. Now, that being said, today we have a very, very special guest. We are going to be talking with Telva McGruder, the Chief Diversity, Inclusion and Equity Officer, or Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Officer at General Motors, a very near and dear company to Michigan State, the state of Michigan, and to be fair, the entire country. So, floor is all yours, Telva.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you, Adi, and with everyone this evening. It is. Michigan State is very, very dear to General Motors, very dear to the state of Michigan, and so it's great to spend time with you, engineering students, and be able to talk to you about what it's like in the real world. Some of you are probably of the age where you've had some experience in corporate America or in other jobs, and others of you are not. So I'm hoping I'll be able to share with you some of the key things that helped me along the way. And so, Hattie, should I give my background real quick? Do you want me to do that?
Yeah, sure. That would be amazing.
Yeah. So I have kind of miraculously been working for a long time. I've been working for about 30 years now. And that's kind of crazy considering I still feel like I'm about 25, but that's kind of the way it happens. I'm an electrical engineer. I studied electrical engineering at Purdue University. So, don't hold that against me, particularly given last fall. And I got both my undergraduate and my graduate degree from Purdue, though I didn't get my graduate degree immediately after I graduated. I went back to school while I was working and obtained my master's degree. So And I went into engineering school to become a biomedical engineer. And as things would happen, that's not what I ended up doing. That said, I've created a fantastic career built on controls and built on helping people. And I'm sure we can talk a little bit more about that. I did start my career working at NASA, and I was able to work for NASA during my summer internships while I was an undergrad. And then I was able to start there when I graduated from university. And after a couple of years there, I moved into General Motors because of the skills that I acquired as a controls engineer, a test engineer at NASA. GM was looking for that exact skill set with the type of coding that I knew how to do at the time. And so that's what got me into General Motors. And I started in manufacturing as an engineer, as an associate manufacturing engineer. So very, very first level. And then quickly started to work on projects and machinery and equipment projects in the plants and troubleshooting, large and small machines and working on refurbishments of equipment. And then moved into other areas between maintenance and engineering, back and forth as I kind of continued to progress with my knowledge and skill set. So I stayed there for a while, about 8 years in my first location. But by the time I was done, I had been able to lead people that were both hourly and salary. And I've been able to lead major engineering projects for launches of new vehicles. I have been able to lead major maintenance projects to install new equipment and things like that, and also lead quality solutions and things like that in my site. And then I spent a few years in Canada at a plant located in Oshawa, Ontario, and I led production there. And it was the first job I'd had where I didn't have any technical responsibility. And I'll tell you, it was a little bit scary at first, but throughout my time working at my first location, I had gained a huge affinity for what it takes to actually make things happen in a manufacturing location. And so my ability to run production there was fantastic. And I was always able to apply my technical skill. And we launched a couple new vehicles, and we added a third shift to the site that I was leading as the operations manager, which was a great experience. And then I was able to come to Michigan. So I've been in Michigan since about 2005. And since I've been in Michigan, I've been able to be a project manager managing equipment projects all over the United States. I've been able to go back to a third plant location and be the engineering director for the whole plant. I spent some time back at headquarters and manufacturing engineering, leading large automation projects, machine automation projects, and I've led projects to launch tooling for brand new vehicles, the body tooling that makes the doors and the hoods and all that good stuff. So I led a team of program managers that were making sure that we had all the tools to launch every vehicle we were launching that created the body of the vehicle for about 3.5 years. And then I was like, you know what? Most of my career I've been working on the body of the vehicle and quality and operations and engineering and maintenance associated with the body of the vehicle, and I wanted to do something different. And so I took an opportunity to go into facility engineering. And so as an executive, I was able to lead global facility engineering for the company, where we were not only building new plants and modifying our office spaces and building new office buildings, but we were also the ones that were leading the march toward energy efficiency in all of our facilities. And I was able to lead at that time the energy procurement team, where we put together an energy strategy for the company as we marched toward renewable energy. So we made the commitment to be 100% renewable by 2050, and our team was able to put together the plan to really make that happen, and then to accelerate that pace we brought it all the way back down to 2025 now. So super exciting stuff, allowed me to dive deep into sustainability and many other areas. And so my learning continued. And what's been great about my career is I've been able to learn the whole time, and I've been able to teach the entire time. It has not always been easy, and I'm sure we'll get into a bit of that. But now I've had the opportunity to lead in diversity, equity, and inclusion, largely based on the fact that my whole career I've navigated it by helping people
come to work in the morning and be excited about what they do, working with me, sometimes working on my team or working in cross teams. And so I've always been really committed to culture and culture change and developing people and helping other people grow while I grow myself. And now I get to do it for the whole global company. So there you go. Hopefully that's great.
No, that's amazing. And, something that's really exciting, I want to know more about this, and that's why it's so exciting for me, is for the entirety of your career, you've worked with General Motors. That is quite uncommon. And it is amazing to see, obviously the loyalty, the commitment towards a specific company. And I'm pretty sure now that you hold a position in the C-suite in the same company that you worked for almost 30 years, it would be, it's almost like you're connected to it, like it's family. So that's amazing. And, to know that you've grown within the company so much is exciting, is encouraging for all of us as well.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's interesting to me, Adi, because when I came to GM, I was on my way to medical school. The only reason I was working was because I wanted to make sure I had experience controlling things before I went to do what I really wanted to do, which was my plan to develop, design, implement devices that could help control the human body. Right, that was my actually plan, and I was going to go to medical school so I could implant those devices in the human body. And so I started working because I was like, I've done some great research here, but I really haven't done the work in real life to see what it's like to control something, closed loop control, open loop control, et cetera, et cetera. And life changed, and so I didn't do that. But my plan to stay at GM for only a few years didn't change. and I know that many of you that are watching right now are like, oh my God. I mean, when I came into the company and I met people that have been here for, 20 years, I was like, you people are all crazy, right? It was, and so I said, there's no way that's ever going to happen to me. And shockingly, and even today, I'm still shocked, I'm still here. But the reason I'm still here is certainly, yes, there's a bit of loyalty, but it really, for me, came more down to, I was constantly challenged and constantly able to do different things, right? I remember I had one leader tell me one time, when guy I was working for, he said, tell me, you have job ADD. And I was like, is that a compliment or what is that? But when he explained it, he said, you move through things and you love new challenges. And, after a couple of years, you're ready to go do something else. And I said, yeah, it's true. And I do take, it was a compliment, right? In the end, because that's what I need in order to grow. But GM has given me that. And so even though I've been at the same company for that long, I have done so many different things. So just to give you some context for that, right? That's the stay factor.
That's amazing. And I was about to ask you another question, but this is a perfect segue to something I wanted to ask later on. So I'll go ahead and ask it. A lot of people have advice saying, it's an important skill to know when to move on from a particular job or from a particular company, right? So I want to hear your thoughts on one. You said that GM was constantly challenging you, and it was exactly what you needed, and that was what inspired you to stay at GM, not the brand value of what GM or what the company stands for, or its market cap and its performance in the industry, right? I'd love to hear your thoughts on choosing the right company to work with, and knowing when to stay at a company and move on to a different one.
Yeah, two great questions. So choosing the right company. There are a lot of ways to look at this, and I will tell you that the first and most important thing is, who are you? What do you want? What are you interested in? And is this company going to be able to fill that passion that you have, right? And I say the word passion, which unfortunately today is a bit overused, but it's the best word to describe what I'm talking about. You know, our skill sets as engineers can be applied literally anywhere. Okay, so as you are, because we have the ability to solve problems, we have the ability to figure things out. And so when it comes down to where do you want to be, it has to be aligned with what are you most passionate about? Is that company doing things that you are interested in, and things that you can get your energy behind? Because it's one thing to have a job, it's another thing to have something that you do that doesn't drain your energy. Okay, and so you start there. But what you don't have to do in the company you pick is know that it's the place you want to be for the rest of your career, right? You will think yourself to death, and we are very analytical types, and we don't need that, right? You know, so you can pick a good set of companies though, based on what you're passionate about, right? And maybe who's working on projects that you've worked, you know, that are aligned with research you've done, or special projects you've done, or just what you do on the side, outside of school. And then in terms of how do you know how long to stay or when to maybe go somewhere else? Well, there are a lot of factors that play into that as well. You know, for me, there have been times in my career where I've been like, okay, maybe it's time for me to go somewhere else, right? And so, you know, you look around and you're like, okay, let me see, not only let me see what's out there, but let me see what I'm interested in that's going on. And getting to that point where you might say, well, let me see what else I might do. You really want to think about, in what way are you trying to grow? Okay, because no matter where you go, there are going to be things that frustrate you, right? So you don't want to necessarily be running away from something. What you want, if you're going to choose to go somewhere else, you want to be running to something. And generally it's going to be the ability to grow. And then we have to define for ourselves, what does grow mean? And so a lot of people will get caught up thinking, well, I want to be a promotion, or I want to have some title, or whatever. Figuring out what growth means to you is generally going to be a little bit more nuanced than that. So growth to you might be being able to develop a particular skill that you're being hindered from developing in the current place that you're at, right? And you can't go anywhere else in the company to be able to develop it, right? You know, growth may be you being able to lead more teams than what you're leading right now. That doesn't necessarily mean promotion. It just means you want to be able to you know, have the ability to influence change in a different way than you're influencing right now. And you can't find another place to go in the company to do it. And so you really have to define, what does growth mean for you? And make sure that it's not superficial. Make sure it's not something like money, or make sure it's not something like, you know, I just got to have a promotion, because chances are you'll fall into a place that'll promise you a promotion and you'll get it, and then you'll be stuck again. So those are my thoughts.
Gotcha. That's some good advice. That is, you had me thinking about a lot of things while you were saying. I was thinking to myself, what sort of job do I want to be in? And, you know, like you said, it can't be superficial. It can't go even to an extent of, you know, job titles. It's about what you do in everyday's work, I suppose, that, you know, you've got to make a choice about.
Yeah.
Going back for a second, I do want to share with everybody that we had some very, very, very interesting questions come in as you guys registered for the session. So feel free, the chat box is open. Feel free to drop in questions at any point. Towards the end, we will have the opportunity for you to unmute yourself, switch on your camera, and ask Telva those questions yourself. So don't hesitate from using the chat box to share something immediately that Telva was talking about, or a question that, you know, you think you would benefit from if it is asked immediately. And, you know, chat box is all yours, is all I want to say. And talking about some of the questions that came in, like I said, GM is a very near and dear company for all of us here. So a lot of people are interested in knowing quite a lot of things about GM, but it can be summarized in a couple of these questions. Okay. So before we get deep into your career, couple of things about GM that we want to know about is, one, what is it about GM that first attracted you? why did you pick GM? And the second question is, and I feel like you already answered this, but maybe you could talk a little more about GM as a company as a whole. What about GM has kept you there for 27 years?
Okay. So the first question, what attracted me to GM? I could tell the funny story, but I'll tell the I guess the more straight to the point story. So I had developed some skills as a controls engineer before I came to General Motors, and I can program in a couple of key languages that the company was looking for. And so when I found out that General Motors was interested in me, I had to figure out if I was interested in GM. And so during the interview and even post-interview, I asked questions to try to understand, okay, what are you all actually doing and what would I be able to do? And when GM told me that as a young engineer, I would be able to contribute to major projects launching new vehicles where we would not only, I wouldn't just be troubleshooting things that were already there and existing and developing new code for existing equipment. When they said, we've got work to do. We build millions of products per year, and we need new equipment to help us do that. And we need engineers that will be able to help us scope out that equipment and then bring it in and then make it run and then work with our production teams to make it run better. Like for me at that time, that was super exciting. And I said, yeah, absolutely. Like I didn't want to just be, the new engineer that was doing what the other engineers said to do, right? I wanted to be the new engineer that had the ability to actually create change. And that's what GM promised me. So that's why I went to GM. Other companies I was talking to were like, well, after a while, you'll be able to do this and that. And I wasn't interested in that. So I moved into a really fast-paced manufacturing environment, and it worked out really well for me. And then in terms of why I stayed, I did answer that quite a bit. But I will say that, this idea of having meaningful work and then being able to do meaningful work with people that were really, really committed to make amazing things happen. And it has always been, I think, key. And then on top of that, and so those are the things GM did, but then, what I added to that was my desire to, as I mentioned earlier, help people make amazing things happen. And when I realized that there were people that, a lot of people, frankly, that, wanted to maybe marginalize themselves, like if I would go up and I would say, hey, maybe a line was down or something like that. And I would say, what's going on? And they would say, well, we've been down for an hour. And I would say, okay, why? And they would say, do you really want my answer? And I would say, of course I want your answer. And they would go, well, sometimes I talk to people and they don't really pay attention to what I'm saying. I'm like, well, I'm here to pay attention to what you're saying, because I haven't, I don't live on this line like you do. I don't know what's going on. And when I realized that, most people just want to be heard, right? People just want to be listened to. They want to be part of the solution. When I realized that, and I realized, frankly, the magic that can happen when you listen to people and they listen to you, that helped me realize that we could solve a lot of problems that haven't been solved for many years. And so that's what's kept me going, is being able to problem solve with people.
Pretty cool. Learning a lot about GM, more than I could have seen on a website or a job description. So that's another thing that a lot of speakers have continuously told, especially on this series, is shared in this series, is talk to people. Networking is amazing. Networking is the key. You can really understand about somebody, something, or a company even just by talking to them. That's why this entire speaker series is so near and dear to me. We learn so much about experiences in companies that we can't get off somewhere else. A couple of things that you did mention, and for especially those participants who have joined College to CEO for the first time, engineers with an engineering degree can it can be applied anywhere. And Telva is living example of the fact that she started off in electrical engineering and now she's the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer at General Motors. Electrical engineering, automotive industry, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Like, things can get unpredictable, and having an engineering degree is an amazing foundational base. So for all of you attending here who are engineers, you're doing great. So now taking you completely back to your college, to your junior or senior year, when fresh out of electrical engineering, you did share your main motivation was let's say it was a medical school, right? Why electrical engineering? And graduating from electrical engineering, keep considering your main motivation was med school. How did GM come into the picture?
Oh yeah. Oh, you want me to tell a story? Okay. So so I chose electrical engineering. So as a high school student, I'm going to go back to high school, Adi.
Even better.
Even better. So when I was in high school, early high school, I didn't even know what an engineer was, right? And I was watching a television show, and the show was about the implantation of the first artificial heart. Okay, and it was the Jarvik heart, and an engineer had developed it, and it had successfully been implanted in a man. And I got done watching that show, and they had talked about the doctors and the engineers that had done this work, right? And so I went to I knew what a doctor was, of course. So I go to my dad and I go, "What's an engineer?" He was like, and he tried to explain it to me. And, I was like, so I went to the library, which is what we did then because we didn't have Google. And I went to the library and started trying to figure out what an engineer was. And so I read some things and I figured out, oh, okay, that's what engineer is. And it wasn't great, but it was basically, talking about how engineers design things and all that. And so I started doing more and more research about these artificial, devices that engineers develop for the human body. And in doing that, I thought, I want to do that. Before that point, I thought I wanted to be like a veterinarian or something, but I was like, I want to do that. And I went to my counselor at high school because my parents, my dad finished high school and my mom finished high school at that time, right? And so I went to the counselor, and the counselor was like, the counselor explained what engineering was, but she looked at me and she was like, I don't know about you, like, I'm not sure that engineering is what's for you. And it really came down to me being a woman and me being Black. And so I just said, well, this is what I want to do. And so I was a little frustrated, but the counselor did put my name into some things at universities that were looking for students. And that's how I ended up at Purdue. And I'll fast forward. So I start there. I decided to major in electrical because at that time, biomedical engineering was a very new field, right? And so I minored in biomedical engineering. I didn't want to major in it because I didn't want to get stuck. Like I didn't know where that was going, even though Purdue had an accreditation in it. And so I minored in biomedical. I did all my undergrad thesis and eventually grad thesis in biomedical engineering, and with the goal of being able to design devices, control devices for the human body. So that's why electrical engineering. And then ultimately, like I said, I wanted to go to medical school to be able to implant those devices, right? I was, hey, I had a plan. But then I went to work and because I wanted to learn how controls worked in real life. And, ultimately, what I found out was that what I wanted was to help people. What I wanted was to create better lives for people. And I started at NASA, and we did some amazing things, which we could talk about. But when I landed at GM and I was learning controls and I was getting better and better at it, what I realized is that there was another way to help people, right? And it was in the work that I was doing with the people that I was working with every day, right? Helping them achieve their goals while I was achieving mine. And so I, with the way life goes, I just slowly migrated away from that. So that was engineering for me. The other thing I will say is that when I got to engineering school, it was a lot, right? Because I was in school with people, pretty much, boys at that point that had grown up like working with their dad, fixing cars and doing all kinds of stuff like that. And I had never done any of those things. I had done a lot of Lego building, right? But I really didn't have that deep background. And so I had to really learn how to stick with engineering. And what helped me stick with it was my vision of what I wanted to ultimately do. And so I'm very thankful for that vision because that helped me stick in.
Pretty awesome. But yeah, so electrical engineering helped keep you on your path, and everything you learned there has obviously helped you. So that's super cool.
Oh wait, and Adi, can I add one more thing?
Absolutely.
So going back to this comment that engineers can do anything. So I spent about 8 years focusing hard on electrical engineering. But in that time, I started picking up mechanical engineering, right? Because I was working on press equipment, which is as big as most people's houses, right? Which is an electromechanical device. And so, as I moved on in my career and I started managing projects and managing press automation and press design, I went from electrical engineering core and started learning a tremendous amount of mechanical engineering in order to do my job. And so, over my career, I've worked in electrical, mechanical, electromechanical, computer engineering. I've done quite a bit of that. I did the whole Ethernet infrastructure in 2 of the plants that I worked in, right? So, even some, IT hardware side. So you can do all kinds of things.
Gotcha. So when you were at GM, fast forward to, you got recruited by GM, we know what your goals were, we know what you were looking for. You started off, correct me if I'm wrong, one of your early roles were plant manager, and you started off as pretty much a trainee, I think, and then plant manager, and then manager of managers, and so on, right? What were some of those core values or models that it could just be traits and characteristics of your daily routine? What were some of those things that helped you climb the ladder one by one, coming to, thinking back 27 years, what were some of those core values that you had to hold on to succeed?
Yeah. So, given how my career started and progressed, right, there were a lot of days where, I had a lot of frustration. And so, one, because, you're trying to solve problems and that's not easy. 2, because everybody thinks they know everything because you're with a whole bunch of technical people. And guess what? None of us know everything. And there's a lot of tension and pressure and expectations to deliver. And so what I had to learn very early was that I had to decide what a good day was, because there are a lot of days where you get to the end of the day and you're trying to figure out, did I get anything done, right? Is there anyone around here that is happy with what happened today? And because there's always more, you're always reaching for more. And so I had to define what a good day was. And so for me, I said, you know what, it's a good day if I have learned something that's going to help me tomorrow. That's a good day. It's a good day if I've taken someone that had a negative attitude and turned it more positive, right? That's a good day. It's a good day when I can look back and, look at what I accomplished and understand what went the way I wanted and what didn't. Not necessarily I got everything done I wanted, but what went the way I did, because if you can look back at your day and don't really know, whether you made progress and what it looked like, then you have a problem. So I defined what a good day was, because otherwise I could come home every day and list all the things that went wrong. right? And because, that's how I think. And so I did that, and that helped me, because when I had a day when I tried to change the energy of someone to more positive and I wasn't successful, let's say, right? Okay, not a good day, but what did I learn about how to do that better the next time? And so the way I was able to navigate a career where there's always demands and always people that are upset was I got good at practicing how to take negative energy and turn it into positive energy. I got good at practicing understanding, if I didn't get something done I wanted to get done, why not? And let's work on that, right? I got good at building the relationships that would, help achieve some of the goals that needed to be achieved. And that's literally what I did, my entire career. And when something big needed to happen and I realized that no one else is figuring this out, right? Right? This was the other thing I did. So what's a good day? And then the second thing was take advantage of the times where you can see that even though you're young, right? Even though you don't know as much, there are things that you see that no one else is seeing, always, right? A lot of people think, well, I've only been here 2 years, or I've only been here 5 years, and that person with 20 years, well, if they can't figure it, no. Chances are you need the viewpoint of someone with a different kind of perspective, right? And so when you see that, you take advantage of those situations and move into those situations and don't run away from them, right? I've had people tell me, are you sure you want to do that, right? The last 2 people that did that, like they lost their minds, or, they got moved to another job. And I look at it and I go, I think I can help. And so I would go and try to help, right? And so that's the other thing. I run to something, right? The best way out is always through, is one of my favorite sayings. And so rather than running away from things or avoiding things that everyone else is avoiding, I'm generally the one that's going to go toward that thing, and then try to figure out who I can bring with me.
That is awesome. And that is such a different perspective of defining success for you every day. So you've every day when you go into the work in the morning, you're not going with, trying to remember saying you have to do this, or, you have to do something for you to go climb up the corporate ladder. It's just that you have a goal to do something good by the end of the day. It's something to look forward to every day and not holding on to something for, climbing the corporate ladder. And that is impressive. That is something that I'd love to do starting tomorrow. Define a good day for myself.
Yeah, and it's not like I didn't have ambition, but if you let that ambition is really important, right? So I don't want to marginalize ambition, but a lot of times people get so caught up in that next title or that next job, and all they're paying attention to is that. And they're missing all these opportunities that are all around them, right? And the key for me has always been pay attention to those things and go do those things, because now you're building skills that other people aren't building. And so when the opportunity comes along, you've got skills that other people don't have because you haven't stayed in this lane, right? So a lot of people say, well, what's the progression of jobs I need to take to become a manager? But right, okay, that's great. If you stick to that, it might work. Right? But it may be that the business is changing around you and that progression of jobs doesn't even make sense anymore, right? And so you pay attention to what you can do to build skill and how you can contribute.
Fair enough. No, and it just occurred to me, it's easy to, to say that going into work and, a good day is doing one of these many things. It might seem easy, but, doing that consistently every day for 27 to 30 years, I think that's what makes it, makes you really grow. Okay. Before we move on to a couple of interesting questions that I have, I'd love to give the floor to Aman, who has I think a pretty important question that, that a lot of us students can benefit from.
Hi, Aman.
Hi, Tevla. So it's actually a couple of questions bundled together. So you've been with General Motors for so long. So have you seen a shift in the diversity landscape in General Motors? Were there issues that you saw and worked on? And also, the second part of my question is, as part of your diversity initiative, do you also bring in international students on board as part of your team? Thank you.
Yeah. So it's changed a lot from a diversity perspective since I've been with the company. Yeah, absolutely. And what's changed is not only the makeup of the team, right? The diversity of the team when it comes to, students from other countries or students whose heritage is from other countries, and women and, LGBTQ, et cetera, right? Disabled team members, like it has changed a lot in terms of the makeup of our business. Okay. And in more areas than others, right? And that's part of what I get to work on now, right? More in some areas than others. But what's changed, I think, more notably is the opportunities that are being given to all of our diverse team members, right? That includes all team members, right? Regardless of race, ethnicity, background, et cetera, the types of opportunities that are being offered for, every type of person is much broader than it used to be, right? So there used to be, when I would walk into a room, for instance, people would assume that I was, the production supervisor or, something like that. Whereas over the years, that's changed so that when, a young Black female engineer walks into a room, people will be actually not surprised that there's a young Black female engineer walking into the room, right? The same goes with many other demographics because the opportunities have broadened a lot. With regard to international students, yes, GM, like all the other companies, we have rules for which international students can join us and all that good stuff, right? But we have ways to allow many team members to join us that have all different types of backgrounds. There's some limitations, particularly if students require sponsorship. That one is trickier for us and depends largely on skill set. But we have students, we have team members at GM that are from, God, I don't remember the last count, 80 something different countries or something like that. And more than a few from each country, right? So, our representation is absolutely phenomenal right now. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aman. Yeah, I think especially for Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer of GM, that was a pretty important question.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks. Thank you for asking that. We have a couple more interesting questions too from Jennifer first, please.
Hi, Telva. How are you?
Hey, Jennifer.
So yeah, a little background real quick. I'm an electrical engineering senior at Michigan State, and my mom just celebrated 20 years working as an assistant at General Motors. So the whole reason I'm able to be a first generation college student is because of General Motors. So yeah, I just want to throw that over to you, give my appreciation to the company. But here's my question. So a lot of us, we're undergraduate students, and we'd like to know, what do you think was the most valuable thing that you learned from your undergraduate education at Purdue? And if you could go back to being an undergraduate student, what would you do differently, or what would you emphasize to do?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
That's my favorite question, by the way, and I wanted her to ask it. What were some of the mistakes you made, and what would you do differently?
That's awesome. I think the biggest thing that I took away from my undergraduate education has helped me throughout my entire career. And I've alluded to it a bit in this talk, which is that Purdue taught me that I could figure it out. right? And I had a lot of really, really hard nights, right? I was coming in, the competition was fierce. I'm with all these people, I'm in circuits, double E 101, circuits, and they're like, oh yeah, just do this and just do that and and I'm like, what? Like, okay, I've done this circuit 4 different ways and I'm still not getting power to, to the output. But I could figure it out. And because of the rigor in the education, and you've got the same thing in MSU, you can't graduate without that understanding, right? And if you're not gaining that confidence along the way, step back and look, because chances are you've gained that skill, right? But Purdue was pretty relentless, frankly, right? And there were times when I didn't figure it out, like, okay, this class is kicking my butt, right? But they taught me that. And the second thing that I learned at Purdue is get engaged with activities outside of just that core curriculum. And I know many of you have done that. Really important, right? If you're going to do a Rube Goldberg contest, or, it may be band, it may be, you're designing a solar powered vehicle, right? Like, do those things, because they give you experience that is going to be akin to the kinds of things that you need to do at work. And then, what was your second question? What was the second part of your question, Jennifer?
It was kind of, what would you do differently if you were an undergraduate student again, or what would you emphasize?
So what I would certainly do differently is, I was able to work in the summers between, each of my years, which was great. But what I didn't do, so I recommend everyone do that. If no matter when you can get that first job, get it, right? But what I didn't do as strongly as I wish I would have was bring what I learned from those jobs, right? Whatever work you do, bring it back into my education, right? And really build stronger relationships with professors and like directors and people like that are leading different initiatives in the school. Bring back what I learned and build some relationships that way, because what that ends up doing is it ends up kind of enriching your learning that you're doing outside of school and your learning that you're doing in school. So kind of bridging those together. I always kept them very separate. And it goes back to what Addie's been talking about. It goes back to a bit of networking and relationship building. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I have a quick fun question. What's something in your office that is on your desk, or something that inspires you that you can see right now that you're is one of my favorite things in your office?
Oh my gosh. Okay, I have a lot of books. But I've got plants. They make me really happy. Yeah. But I've got this little guy. Oh, I don't know if you can see him. It's it's called an Inushuk. But what it is it's built by indigenous peoples. This one came from Canada. Okay. And it's about balancing your energy, right? Okay. And you all have heard me talk a lot about that. I have a creative name. I'm not big into titles. I've got this big fancy title and a lot of responsibility, but my creative name is Energy Ninja. And so, that's tends to be what I do. How do I create change in a global business? I move the energy to where it needs to be for us to create that change. And she reminds me. So there you go.
Your energy is radiating through the Zoom call, so definitely own up to the name. I love it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. I completely agree. Energy Ninja is the perfect title. I don't know who came up with it, but all credit to them.
One of my friends, yeah.
We have another question from Nikunj, but before he asks, I do want to ask you this, sort of a different perspective to, what would you have done differently? Is there something in college or especially at work in your early years that you didn't do that you regret not having done? And it's something that we should look out for to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I don't live life with regret, but I definitely look back and go, I should have thought a little differently about that. I'm going to pick one thing just because I forgot to say it earlier, and then I'm going to answer your question. One thing when you talk about, navigating my career, right? One thing that I really practice, and I believe in practice also, right? And hopefully you've heard that theme. I practice prioritizing, right? Because on any given day, I say, what's a good day? For a long time, I couldn't figure out what a good day was because I always thought I had to get done with everything on my list. And this idea of prioritizing the things that need to get done right now, critically important. And that took me a little longer to really embrace, right? Because I was so busy taking the energy from all these things coming outside of me, my leader and this peer and this person that was upset and, changing priorities all the time. And I figured out that for myself, I've got to prioritize so that I can deliver my best results. And not always be turning to what every single person in the world needs. Okay. So that kind of goes back to how I help my career, but it also is part of what I regret. I wish I had learned that earlier. But when I look at, bigger regrets, I think one of the biggest is it took me a little while to really ask questions about why decisions were being made about me. Okay. And these are career type questions. And so, I started as an engineer, and then, a couple of years after that, they said, we want you to go be a maintenance supervisor. And I got plenty mad about it. Right. And I said, why do I need to be a maintenance supervisor? And they said, well, because we need maintenance supervisors right now, and we think you'd be good at it, right? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, at the time I was working on my master's, I was like, I'm working on my master's degree in engineering, and you want me to go supervise maintenance? What, right? And that was one of those moments where I was like, let me see where else I might want to go work right now, right? And but as it turned out, I went down and I started supervising maintenance, and that taught me some of my best lessons about listening to people, right? But I didn't go back and say, why me? Why a maintenance? Like, really, I know you need somebody. I get that, right? So I didn't do that. And then they came and they said, okay, now, and I did maintenance and, I was promoted there. And then I came back to engineering and worked in engineering. And then they said, okay, now, we want you to go back to the floor. We want you to be a maintenance superintendent. Well, this is another promotion, which was awesome, right? So I was doing well. No one could say I wasn't doing well, but I didn't say, well, what made you think I was ready to be a maintenance superintendent? So my biggest regret is that I didn't engage early in my career at making the leaders explain to me what they saw in me, right? Which meant that I spent a lot more energy trying to figure out how to navigate things than I really probably needed to, because had I gained that insight, I would have been able to use that. And that would help build a relationship with that leader a bit more than I already had. But it would also help me understand, what does this company consider to be important, right? And you want to know that, because sometimes you may not agree. Like, what they consider important may not be what's important to you, right? And so I figured that out, but I regret that it took me a while to just start asking, because I didn't think it was my place to ask. It's always your place to ask, what are you seeing in me? They may tell you things that they see in you, you don't even see in yourself. Okay. And that happened to me later in my career, and it helped accelerate my career.
That is awesome. I will make it a point to make sure I know exactly what I'm valued for and exactly what I need to improve on from every step of my life from now. But that is awesome. I need a moment to just process that. As I take that, I want to give the floor to Nikunj to ask. He also has a pretty cool question.
All right, Nikunj, hello.
Hi, thank you so much for being here today. I'm Nikunj, and I use he, him, his pronouns. And I actually don't study engineering like probably most of the folks out here. I study environmental economics and management. And I was actually surprised to see how you studied electrical engineering with specialization in biomedical. And then when I was reading about your career, you moved to sustainability, and now you also advise SEAS at University of Michigan. So I just want to know how such a drastic shift happened in your career, and what was probably the realizing point. Like, I know I'm in sustainability from day one, but somebody like you who moved through so many different curves, what was that tipping point when you realized that I want to go into sustainability now?
Oh, it's awesome. So, I mentioned that I wanted to get into another area of leadership, and I really lean toward the facilities area for a couple of reasons. One, when you're working, which we ultimately rebranded after I moved to lead facility engineering, we rebranded to sustainable workplaces, because this work is really about touching every single person in the company, as well as touching people outside of the company in a different way than I had done my whole career, right? And as I started leading facility engineering, I knew that I wanted to jump into sustainability, because we as a company were at this point where we were, moving into electric vehicles. And we had a lot of work to do to work on not only that portion of assisting climate change, but all these other areas of sustainability that we could hit, right? And then I knew that I was in a position to help. So I was leading energy efficiency, energy engineering, I was leading energy procurement, and I was also in the organization Sustainable Workplaces, where all of our environmental engineers are, and all of our environmental scientists, and things of that nature. And so, I said, okay, like, this is it. We are going to be able to work on, assisting or decreasing our impact on climate change by virtue of the group that I lead. And with my peers, we can really help the company move forward in sustainability. And so it was really seeing the opportunity, and that was combined with my passion, right? And my passion was really in the social space and really helping people. And so I put those two together, and then just dived in, right? Books and all kinds of reading and learning from my team, and forming partnerships with utility companies and all that good stuff. And I just went headfirst in, because it's so important. It's so important to our future. And I was in a position to really help move the needle.
Well, thank you so much. And I think whoever gave you that name, Energy Ninja, I'm sure like you utilize that not only with the energy you emit right now and are sending those vibrations to us, but also with the work you've done at GM. Thank you so much.
Yes, and I do absolutely think of it that way. Absolutely, Nikunj. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikunj. I'm surprised to see that it is already 8 o'clock. That 1 hour went by so quickly. But before you go, and I want to be completely respectful of your time and every one of our participants' time. I want to ask you one more question.
Yeah.
And believe me, I had a million more questions to ask, but so the one question that I want you to answer is, if today, 2022, Telva McGruder, after almost 30 years at GM and in the industry, were to go back and give junior or senior at Purdue, Telva McGruder, one piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah. So the one piece of advice I would give is, don't believe that you have to have all the answers. Don't hold yourself back by trying to never make a mistake. You will make mistakes, and you will learn from those mistakes. And it may change the path that you go in, but as long as you don't hold yourself back and try to be perfect, you will grow, right? you will grow. You don't have to have all the answers. Even when people are asking you, what do you want to do next? What do you want to do with your life? You know, even when people are doubting your decisions, even when people that don't know what they're talking about try to tell you what you are not capable of, right? Don't let that be a reason for you to try to be perfect just to prove to someone else what you can do. You have to know that inside of you, you have what you need to be successful. You have to know that. And that doesn't mean you have to have all the answers. It just means you have to continuously work to be your best self. That's what I tell myself. And I tell myself that because, you know, as a young engineer, everyone wanted me to have all the answers and I wanted to have all the answers. And I had to reconcile with myself that frankly didn't make any sense, right? What did make sense was thinking that I could figure it all out. And so, you know, believe in your ability to do that. And don't be afraid to depend on others to help you sometimes.
That is awesome advice. And that is something that obviously, like a million other things that you shared this in this past hour, I will keep that in my mind for sure. But I seem to have missed one question, but this is also an amazing question. So if you're cool with it, I want to let Veronica unmute herself and you know.
Oh, okay.
Hi, sorry,
Hello.
I'm like going over the time limit.
It's all right. You know, I ate dinner, so.
Okay, that's good. So, you know, my past experience, I have worked in manufacturing as a shipping supervisor.
Yeah.
And I want to see your take on it of, you know, production. Unfortunately, it is male dominated. Anything with management, supervising. So have you ever experienced resistance when leading men? And if you have, or other, you know, like even your colleagues as management, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, I was shocked that this question didn't come sooner. So my whole career, right? My entire career, I've been dealing with men. It took until the job I'm in right now. And this is just happenstance in my career, but it just is my career. It took until the job I'm in right now to have to be working for a woman, right? Most people that have worked for me, worked with me, and who I have reported to have been men. And so how do you deal with that? And people have doubted me. You know, people have looked at me like, you know, at first I thought, well, it's because I'm young. And then it's like, well, because I'm a woman. Well, because I'm Black. Well, because whatever, right? People doubt you. And so all those reasons can be a reason, right? No matter what your race, if you're young, no matter what. But men, you know, being in a male-dominated space requires that you really understand what I just said about advice I would give myself, right? Which is that you're not perfect. You're not expected to know everything. And then you have to go to the next step in order to be able to deal in the male-dominated space, which is to understand they're not either, and they don't know everything either, despite what they might think, okay? And so the idea when you're working in this male-dominated space is to claim your space, okay? Many times, men will, just because of like who they are and they've been around, right? It feels like there's no space for you to be present. It feels like there's no space for you to speak up and say what's on your mind, or to even give a counterpoint to the point that's being made. And what you have to understand is that if you're having a thought that no one else in the group seems to be having, or that the person that you're talking to isn't having, then that thought is worth sharing, right? And just be ready. They may ask you questions, they may challenge it, that's okay, because we're all analytical creatures, right? And so then you come back with, okay, here's how I'm thinking about it. Here's how I'm looking at it. I'm not sure that you see that, right? And sometimes in that moment, they won't hear you, right? And what you have to do is be consistent, right? Sometimes you'll be sitting at a table and there'll be 3 guys and you talking, and they say something and you say something and they like ignore it and they keep talking, and one of them comes up with the idea. And then you're like, wait, I just said that, right? And all of a sudden they're like, oh, that's a great idea. And you're like, I just said that. Then say that. Say, hey, that's really similar to what I said like 15 minutes ago. I'd love to continue developing this idea with you, right? And take credit, right? Respectfully say, hey, it's really cool that you guys see that. That's what I was saying a little while ago. So the idea is for you to not assume that what you're saying isn't worth it, right? Assume that what you're saying is worth it. And you may learn that there was something you were missing, and that's okay. You go, thanks a lot, right? But if you never said it in the first place, you never know that you were missing that thing. So no matter what, you win, okay? And over time, I'll tell you one more quick thing. When you find you are going to bring skills that others don't have, right? Coming out of college, I promise you, you have skills that the people with 20 years of experience don't, right? You have perspective that they don't. As male, female, right? So the other thing you can commit to do is to share what you know and to learn from others, right? And a lot of times it's just building the relationship so that they get to know you better, so that you feel more comfortable talking to them and they feel more comfortable talking to you. And just, just break through that intimidation factor, right? So those are my quick thoughts. Wasn't so quick, but there you go.
No, you brought a lot of good points, because it's a lot of, as a female, you feel so much frustration.
Yeah.
Being there, but that's a good take on it. Thank you.
Yeah, particularly when everyone's moving fast, and particularly when it seems like, you're being marginalized, right? When I first started out, most of the people I worked with had kids my age, right? And so they looked at me as a little kid, right? And so, it takes you demonstrating your capability a couple times, right? And then going back and reminding them, that, hey, I've done this already. I know how to do this. Sometimes you have to do that. But as long as you claim your space in the world, and work to build that relationship over time, it becomes much better with that individual or group of individuals.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
That was an amazing question, Veronica. Thank you so much for asking it for the benefit of everybody here.
I had to. I'm like, there's no female representation.
You have to, yeah.
I'm so glad you did.
I'm so glad you asked, right? And it is not a minor thing, but it is certainly one that many of us have dealt with, and that is handleable. And the last thing I'll say, there are some people, like, don't kill yourself. There are some people that you're just like, you know what? Me spending my energy on you is not even worth it right now, right? But guess what? There are so many other people where it is worth it. And then as you continue to move, then those other people will start to tell that person, hey, have you talked to Veronica? You need to talk to Veronica. And then that person that really, was like a brick wall, all of a sudden that wall starts to soften.
All right, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Thanks, Veronica. And I think that was the last question that we had, Telva. Thank you so much for your time. And before we end the session and this recording, I want to say you have definitely impacted student lives for the better today. There were some brilliant messages and advice in there that was so heartfelt and genuine that we're so, on behalf of everybody here, from the College of Engineering or from all of the universities that had students participating from today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me. And I wish you all the best at Michigan State and with your careers, and with your families and your good health. Thank you.